And so that's what's so interesting about understanding these archetypes, because I think it helps you see yourself in a different way. And I just believe the more you can understand about yourself and the more you can understand about other people, the better off you're going to be in this life. So
welcome to Settling's Not an Option. I'm Adam Nebbs, and I'm here with my co-host Amanda Stanhope. This show is for anyone out there who feels like they've settled for an unfulfilling life. Whether you've settled in a relationship, the work that you do, or how you feel about yourself, we're here to tell you that settling's not an option. So, I don't know if you're a visual person or you like listening to things, but we are everywhere. We're on YouTube. So, to show your support to how great this show is, and I don't say that in an egotistical way. If you've been listening, you'd know that. But to show your support, there's a big button called subscribe on YouTube. Please click on that button and subscribe, because the more people we have as subscribers, as you know, the more traction we get, the more people can listen to us.
Yep.
If you like audio stuff, so you're more like me, we're on Spotify. You can follow us. So the more people, again, that get, that follow us, the more exposure we get out there. And the good thing with things like Spotify, right, if you're like me, you're in your car, you're driving somewhere. I hate downtime in the car. It just annoys me. You can just have Settling's Not an Option on in the background, listen to us, have some thought-provoking ideas on the way to the supermarket, something like that.
Sitting in a traffic jam. What more could you want? Exactly. And Amazon Music. Don't forget Amazon Music, too.
Amazon Music.
I'm an Amazon Music person, so.
There you go. Exactly. See, I was excluding the Amazon Music.
I know.
You guys
cool. We'll let it slide.
But there's lots of other ways. We're on LinkedIn. We have a Gmail account, which is cheers-to-not-settling@gmail.com. So any feedback about the show would be fantastic. If you've got any contributions about our topic this week, that would also be great. And finally, coffee. So we are just two struggling people who need money for audio equipment, lighting equipment. Look how red my face looks today. Please support us on coffee. All right, so that's the end of that plug. So this week, we are going to continue to talk about Carl Jung. So Amanda's going to kind of take you through who Carl Jung is shortly. But just to unpack, last week we talked about the shadow. And the shadow, or the concept of the shadow, falls under Jung's concept of the personal unconscious. So just to kind of talk through the tiers, I suppose, and where this sits, is he talks about the psyche. And the psyche is made up of three components. There's consciousness, personal unconscious, and collective unconscious. So what we're going to kind of unpack a little bit more today is archetypes, which falls within the collective unconscious. So I'll throw it to Amanda, who's just going to kind of unpack that a bit more for us.
Yes, because we know that's a lot of terms that most people are not familiar with. And even as Adam and I have tried to get familiar with them, we don't really have that great of an understanding yet. We're just going to say that right now. And we're just trying to figure it out. And we want to figure it out with you. So we're just doing our best here to figure it out. But so yes, if we say something that is wrong too, let us know that in the comments, because I would definitely like to know that. So what an archetype is, when we're thinking about it in a psychological way, is basically it's a prototype of our consciousness, of the psyche, I guess. Or if you want to just say our mind, it's a prototype of our mind. And the thought is that everybody is born with the same ingredients, I would say, in their mind, or the same prototype. And this prototype or archetype is a built-in mode of human behavior and thought that exists prior to birth. And so it's behaviors and thoughts that everybody is given before they're even born. So it's just a really interesting concept. And we'll get into a lot more of it as we go here. But as far as Adam was talking about the psyche being comprised of the conscious self, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. And where there's kind of how we think it works is there's two levels of archetypes. So there's 12 archetypes that we're going to talk about that are part of the collective unconscious. And then the personal unconscious consists of the shadow, which we talked about last week, the persona, which is the who you show to the world, basically, or your ego. The persona, the shadow, the anima, and animus, which is in a man, and I can't remember which is which, but in a man, it's the female side of a man, and in a woman, it's the female side of, or in a woman, it's the male side of the woman. Like Did I say that? Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah,
okay.
It's confusing. There's a lot.
Like I got kind of lost there a second. And then what was the fourth one? Shadow, anima, animus,
the self.
Persona. Is the self the fourth one? Yeah, it must be.
It is.
For some reason, I don't know what. That should be the most obvious one. So that's your consciousness, basically, is how I understand it. Is that how you understand it?
Yes. 100%.
That yourself is pure consciousness. Okay. All right. So, all right. So, like I said, these are very complicated topics that we're going to try to break down and have them make sense. And we'll see how it goes. But what our overall theme for this show is going to be: don't settle for your current understanding of yourself and others. And we're going to hit that theme by talking about the background of how Jung developed the concept of archetypes, the link between archetypes and ideologies, and how we can use knowledge of the archetypes to find ourselves. So those are the things we're going to hope to cover. So, Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about the background of how Jung came about all of this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So my understanding of this is pretty limited, and I got quite lost in, even before the show. I only just found out or felt like I found out about this when Amanda explained it to me before the show. Because when you go online and you look it up, and maybe we should just go directly to the source and actually read the literature he wrote. That's probably a good idea. But I got quite lost in the archetypes, to do with the self, the shadow, the animus. And then he talks about a lot of different kind of archetypes, like the hero, the wise old man, all these various things. So my understanding is because Jung wasn't only interested in psychology, he was very well versed in antiquity and myths from all cultures. So not just say the myths that we'd all be quite familiar with, Greek, Roman mythology, that kind of stuff. And he found across all these different cultures just some prevailing themes. They would manifest in different ways in different stories, but ultimately they could be drawn back to these 12 archetypes.
Yeah.
And digging online a little bit, it does look like maybe there are more than 12 archetypes. People think they splinter off into different things. And really, if you look at archetypes and all that come with it, it's actually very complicated.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was just going to quickly say, I saw a quote from Jung where he said there's unlimited archetypes. So, or maybe that was just him covering his butt. So nobody could prove him wrong.
I like that. Somebody's like, hold on, there was a 13th one. And he's like, dude, I explained this.
Exactly. I already said they're unlimited.
Yeah, he's like, what are you talking about, Freud? I know we had an argument, but like, whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, and I think something that would probably be quite commonplace for us to all know about would be mythology. Particularly, even think about the animated movie of Hercules, right? Like that's all to do with mythology. Yeah. Another one is, if we've read Homer's Odyssey or the Iliad, these are all, particular myths. There's all central characters, that could fall into these different archetypal categories.
Yeah.
And because we've carried all of this knowledge, which we manifest in stories throughout time, and it would be amazing to see if you looked at various, say, movies, books today, how many of these archetypes come out in these characters that we love so much.
Sorry, I'm just going to keep interrupting you just because that's what I'm going to do today. So, no, that just reminded me of, I watched this video from Crash Course. So Crash Course is a channel on YouTube, and I think it was Crash Course Mythology because they have different ones. But anyway, I'm just trying to give some credit here. But they were talking about how like Star Wars is very based on these archetypes, and that's why. And they explained it all. I don't really know much about Star Wars, so I'm not going to even try to explain it. But if you think about Star Wars, if you know about Star Wars, and you think about that when we go through what the archetypes are, you'd probably be able to spot it. But anyways, the point there too was that's why so many people love Star Wars across all walks of life, because it's so relatable to everyone, because it's part of our archetype, it's part of the prototype that's within us all. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it would be interesting too. Like, so that's a really good point you make with Star Wars, because there would be so many characters. So the hero, the wise old man, you know,
the shadow,
and it would be in the shadow. It would be interesting to see too people who watch Star Wars who say their favorite characters are, and is that because that person's archetype resonates more with them, and so they say, you know, whereas maybe, I don't know, I like Darth Vader. I'm sure everyone likes Darth Vader. Is he the shadow? Maybe. But, you know, is that because, you know, you can resonate more with that than somebody else who maybe doesn't like Darth Vader? I don't know. It's interesting.
I don't know. I'm like one of the only people in the world who's never seen Star Wars. So.
Oh, my gosh. No, my girlfriend's the same. I think
I've never seen all the way through. I've seen parts of it. But
oh, my gosh.
I know.
That's on your homework list, please.
I know. I tried to watch it once and I just got bored. I know. Sorry. I probably everybody just stopped watching. Sorry.
Yeah, look, all of a sudden our subscribers will all drop off.
I know. Anyways, back to the archetypes.
Yes, but anyways, probably I guess I got a bit off topic there. But the main thing is and what I like the most about Jung is he wasn't just a psychologist. He was somebody that was really well versed in a lot of things. I think we had a joke last week about poor Jung's wife. Probably didn't have a lot of time with him because he was too busy reading books and learning stuff. But yeah, he didn't only understand psychology. He understood things like these myths.
And I forgot to introduce him.
Oh, yes.
I was going to introduce him and I forgot to. So here's what some of the things. So he was influential so he was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, but he was influential in the fields of psychiatry, anthropology, archaeology, literature, philosophy, and religious studies. So yeah.
Just a couple.
But to your point though, he brought all that together because it's the archaeology, the anthropology, the religious studies, all of that knowledge is what allowed him to create this concept of the archetypes. Because I don't think you could create that concept without knowledge of all of that.
No.
It really takes.
And that's the most interesting thing, I think, is the fact that these are central themes throughout all different cultures.
Right.
And obviously you think, you know, we're very connected now.
Right.
But the fact that these myths and these concepts have been going on for so long when people were completely disconnected and on different sides of the planet, why is it that these people and, you know, different cultures share these same kind of archetypes, you know?
Exactly.
Is it because it's part of that collective consciousness, you know, our collective meaning making?
Yeah, and that's what he would see. Like, he was a big studier. That doesn't sound right, but I'm going to say it. He was a big studier of symbols, like religious symbols and mythological symbols. And so that's what he found is that you would find the same symbol, and it might be a tiny bit different, but from continent to continent, from religion to religion, like all over the place, you see the same symbols. And like you said, this is way before people were able to communicate with each other. You know, the time period he was studying was way before there was any kind of mass communication or even people traveling to other countries for that matter. And so to think that these people all over the world were using the same symbols and stories, and I know it's just insane to think about. Yeah. Although I did just think of there could be another explanation.
Yes.
Aliens.
Well, you know,
Sorry, I'm goofy today.
I don't know if you've seen Prometheus.
Prometheus, no.
It's like one of the kind of precursor movies to the Alien series.
Oh,
and when we were talking about that and cultures sharing it, there's like a scene in that movie where, you know, they find all these like cave drawings and things like that. And all it made me think about was aliens. So don't go looking for aliens though, because in Prometheus that turned to shit. Don't do it. You know.
No, I don't know. It's just funny because the aliens could have been hopping around drawing these symbols on all different continents.
Maybe.
You don't know.
And they're laughing at us right now. They're look at these guys thinking there's something here to this. Like,
exactly. But anyways, so that's a good summary too of my understanding of how he came about creating these archetypes. Although obviously, I'm sure there's a lot more to it than we could ever explain. But
true.
You want me to go through the 12 archetypes quickly?
Yes, please.
So I have them written down here. And like we said, they are there's an unlimited number of archetypes. However, these are the 12 that seem to be cited the most, because I looked at several different sources and saw the same ones across different sources. So these seem to be the ones that show up. But so there is the caregiver, the ruler, the artist, the innocent, the sage, the explorer, outlaw, magician, hero, lover, jester, and everyman. So those are the 12, just to give you an idea. And I mean, we're not going to get into explaining every single one, but you can see, if you reflect on that list, that you can start to see that those patterns do repeat in society. You can start to see those people. Well, and you can start to see that archetype in yourself. Well, maybe that's a good point, or good place too, to kind of shift over to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. So, or before we started recording, I mean. So, as I introduced at the beginning, these 12 archetypes are part of the collective unconscious. And so that would be, I don't know, how do you explain? Oh, I know how. I knew I wouldn't know how to explain the collective unconscious, so I did print something out about the collective unconscious. Okay. See, I'm way ahead of myself. All right, so the collective unconscious is shared with other members of the human species, comprising latent memories from our ancestral and evolutionary past. And then Jung called it the form of the world into which a person is born is already inborn in him as a virtual image. So that's how he described the collective unconscious. And then, according to Jung, the human mind has innate characteristics imprinted on it as a result of evolution. These universal predispositions stem from an ancestral past, such as fear of the dark or of snakes and spiders. There are just a couple examples. Yeah, and then it just goes on to talk more about it's an ancestral memories and images. And this is from Simply Psychology. That's where I got that from. So
I was looking at Simply Psychology as well. So plug to those guys. Yeah,
that's a pretty good source. I've used them several different times. But so that's an idea of what the collective unconscious is. So what we believe, what Adam and I have kind of come to an agreement on, is these 12 archetypes that I just named off are part of the collective unconscious. And then the 4 archetypes, which were the shadow, persona, anima and animus, and self, those are part of your personal unconscious. And we are thinking that we all start out with these 12 archetypes, but then as we grow and become people that we're going to become, we kind of pick out parts of those 12 archetypes to form our personal unconscious. Am I describing it well?
And that makes sense, because I think looking online, I got very confused in how
it is
those 4 concepts fall into the 12 that we talked about. So
yeah, right. And so I think that helps to break it down a little bit. But the other, what's that?
I just want to pause for 2 seconds too, and say, to your point about the collective unconscious and shared knowledge from our ancestors.
Yeah.
Nerd alert moment. It's totally to do with the fact that we are all connected through consciousness,
Right.
So
that's kind of what he was getting at. That's not what he said. So here we're going to end up talking about Eckhart Tolle again, because we always talk about Eckhart Tolle. Somehow, one way or another, he comes up. But there is definitely a link between what Eckhart Tolle talks about in the consciousness, or he doesn't call it cult. Do you remember the term he used? He has some term for that too.
He does talk about the collective consciousness.
He talks about collective. I guess he kind of talks about the collective unconscious too.
Yeah, I think
so.
So.
He talks about the collective pain body.
Yes, yes.
So we talked about the pain body a little bit last week, and for people who aren't aware, which is probably a lot of people, the pain body is basically all of your unprocessed emotions, trauma, feelings that you haven't really faced, and so they just become a part of you, and they form like this pain body, he calls it, in you. And so yes, I think the pain, he talked about collective pain body, and that to me seems almost like that is, it's not synonymous with the collective unconscious, but it's kind of the same idea.
Yeah, and that's what I like about Jung is, and something that maybe Freud didn't cover. I think that's where they fractured a little bit.
It sounded like that's where they kind of parted ways, because Freud, like the spiritual side of it.
I think a lot of people, because by the looks of it, I think Jung was actually the president of their little psychological gathering or association.
I saw they had like psychological Wednesdays or something.
Yeah, I think so. I'm
like, that'd be so awesome. It's like, I want to go to that.
Yeah. So, I think he was quite highly respected, but
yeah.
I think as he became more spiritual, people kind of pushed him aside because, again, it's the hard sciences saying, no, we don't want to talk about that. There's no clear evidence. But I kind of want to use that as a tie-in to what I think I talked about last week, which was that idea of the river of consciousness, which I first heard about from Mark Gober, and I think it's attributable to Oliver Sacks. Don't quote me on that. But it's the idea of that consciousness is just a river, and we're all whirlpools within the river of consciousness.
Yeah, you have talked about that before.
Yeah.
No, you didn't last week, but...
okay. At some point I've talked about consciousness.
You have talked about that before, yes.
Yeah, and we each have our own whirlpool, or we're experiencing the world through our own whirlpool. And sometimes we can tap into others' whirlpools. And obviously we're part of that stream of consciousness. So for me, I just think of all of the archetypes are contained within that river. Yeah. And we basically draw on those. Like those are, we might be in the lane of the hero, or we might be in the lane of the crone, or whatever they may be.
Yeah.
But at the same token, just because we're drawing on that collective doesn't mean that we're stuck there. And that's, I guess, one of the overall themes of this episode is just because maybe you fall within a certain category or you're drawing on a certain concept doesn't mean that you're stuck there. Like, challenge yourself to hop out of those things.
Well, exactly. Or even just to accept it about yourself. But yeah, I don't know that you have to hop out of it necessarily.
Yeah, maybe that's
not to completely go against you here, but I don't think that's what you meant.
Yeah.
I don't think you meant to hop out of it, but
no,
not to maybe not to keep not to limit yourself to that definition of yourself.
So instead saying you resonate with the hero, so how would the hero view this moment, and being aware of maybe the limitations of the hero? Right. Would that be a better way of looking at it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was just thinking about so we were going to talk about ideologies, and that might kind of tie into that next. You want to talk about that next?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, I don't know that I have a lot to talk about. I just, in my research somewhere along the line, I ran across the idea that all of our ideologies, and I'll try to explain what ideology is. So my understanding of an ideology is basically a system of beliefs that a certain group of people subscribes to, and like a political belief, a religious belief. I'm sure those are the two that come to my mind right away. I'm sure there's tons of cultural beliefs, that
Mm.
we subscribe to just because of, the culture we're born into or whatever. And so ideology is that belief. But to me, I think of it, so I think that's the official definition. But if you're thinking of like a contemporary definition of it, I think to me it's more even not only that you have the belief, but that you believe that is the only belief. Like when you have a religious ideology, or if I hear the term religious ideology or political ideology, I think of it as a group of people who are so set in their ways that they will never waver on their opinion, no matter what evidence is put in front of them. Is that how you kind of think of an ideology?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what I ran across, though, was that these ideologies are built on the archetypes, because the people who built these ideologies somewhere down the line, whoever was the first one to come up with this belief system, built it on the archetypes, whether they were aware of it or not, because they know these archetypes speak to everyone.
Yeah.
At least one of the archetypes is going to speak to someone. So if you can build an ideology that integrates all of these archetypes, you're going to be able to influence the most people.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. I get.
And they're talking about how, so, I mean, those are the two ideologies I'm thinking of, but even to think of how it's built into advertising. And
I was about to say, was this person like, were these people just really good at marketing?
Yeah,
and they were
basically.
Like, yeah, clever.
But I mean, I think it's done still. I'm sure, I'm positive that it is done today in marketing and even in product development. You think it probably product development, marketing, entertainment, all these things that are meant to grab our attention. I guess anything, now that I say that, anything that's meant to grab our attention for money, in exchange for money, is probably built on these archetypes. So I think it'd be really interesting to start. And I think so when I put this video together, maybe I'll have the archetypes flash across the top of the screen once in a while, because I know it's hard to remember what all 12 of them are. But I think if you start thinking about the 12 and start trying to spot it, like in our modern day lives of how often these archetypes show up, I bet it'd be really interesting.
I was geeking out a bit then because I hadn't thought about that. So when you first spoke about ideologies and the connection to archetypes, honestly, I didn't really know what you meant. I know. I was like, oh,
I never thought of that either. I just happened to run across it the other day.
But that makes sense. What a scary thing. And probably why like advertising is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's because that we can't disassociate from the archetypes that we're connected with, and therefore if that ad resonates with us, we'll probably go down the shops and buy a pair of Nikes. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but
no, but yeah, exactly. Well, that would probably, so let's use that as an example. So I would think like Nike would probably play on hero if we're looking at the archetypes. So we got ruler, artist, innocent, sage, explorer, outlaw, magician, hero, lover, jester, everyman, and caregiver. It's got to play on the hero because none of the rest of them really seem to fit.
Yeah. But there'd be so many ads. I reckon if we grabbed, and maybe at some stage we will, but I reckon if we grabbed some really popular ads and looked at them,
if you could,
they would fall into these categories.
Well, and I can see some of theirs would be the sage. Some of their advertisements would work in the sage, I would say. And I don't know. It's just interesting to think about, though. Like, I can definitely see, like, Apple plays on the artist a lot. And I'm just looking through to see if I can think of some other ones. The jester, that'd be an interesting one. I wonder what one would play on the jester. Oh, so maybe, you probably don't have these ads in Australia, but do you have like Geico insurance?
I think I've seen like the advertisement. I've watched the UFC, but that's, yeah.
But they have all these it's insurance, but they have all these really goofy ads. And that's probably, and there's a lot of goofy ads that when you think about it, it's like a serious product. It's not like a goofy product that they're trying to sell. but they'll have a really comedic ad for it. And so maybe that is why, because everybody has a little bit of that jester in them. But
Yeah. That's
that they know they
interesting.
can speak to people's jester or whatever. Yeah.
I want to watch some ads after this now.
I know.
Yeah, we should totally do some, and maybe next week talk about like how some ads we've seen. You know,
Well, what about religion, like a religious ideology, though? What do you think about? Well, because you've got there's so much in there because you've got the ruler is God. Okay, let's talk about Christianity because that's all I know anything about. So sorry for people from other religions. I respect you. I just don't know about you. I just don't know about your religion. But you have the ruler, that'd be God. And then, so Jesus would probably be the hero. You got the outlaw, which would probably be like Judas or something. There are a lot of outlaws. The caregiver would probably be Mary. The magician, I'm sure there are plenty of magicians in there. And even Jesus, you know, I think I saw something on this, how Jesus worked in a lot of these archetypes too, because he was also kind of the everyman, because Jesus was a carpenter, you know, so his trade wasn't anything, I don't want to say, it wasn't prestigious, let's put it that way. It wasn't a prestigious career to be in at the time. So he kind of fit the everyman as well. And he was kind of a magician because he brought people back to life.
Jesus was all of the archetypes. He was like
kind of an explorer because didn't he travel around? Didn't he spend like a certain amount of days and nights in the desert or something?
I think so. What a guy.
He was kind of an outlaw in a way because he did go against the king. Yeah, I mean, he kind of was all, yeah, so I bet you could make a connection of all of these to Jesus. And that just goes to show how powerful they are, because think of how many people, okay, I'm not saying whether Jesus is real or not, but think of how many people have bought into the idea of Jesus.
Well, do you think that's why Jesus is so popular? Is because his character crosses all of those archetypes?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Wow. Yeah.
And I don't think that, I think that was intentional. I don't think that was an accident.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Again, marketing. Who are these marketers?
So I will give my opinion on this. Why not? So I do believe that Jesus was a real person, but I also believe that the stories that were written about him were embellished quite a bit.
He just had a really good PR person?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that wouldn't be called it. Well, I don't know that he even cared about, I don't think he cared about the PR, but I think when the people were establishing the religion that would be built around him, obviously it's better to make this guy look even better than he really was. I mean, he was already awesome, but if you can even play it up even more.
So he was basically like the Chuck Norris of his time.
Oh my God, that's funny.
You know, because I think Chuck Norris would cover all of those categories as well, wouldn't he?
You're probably, yes, so, I think he would.
I think for any religious, very fundamentalist religious people, I'm sorry for comparing Chuck Norris to Jesus.
Well,
but it just,
but you're not wrong. So he's like the Jesus of our day.
I think so. I really think so.
Oh, that's hilarious. But no, but you know what? Now here I'm thinking, all right, we won't stick on this topic too long, but I got one more interesting one.
Yes.
It just came to mind. Well, I hope you know him. Will Smith.
Well, of course I know Will Smith.
I know. Okay, dude. I don't know.
Been living in the cave that Lazarus died in. Come on.
I know, but I don't know anything about Australia. So I forget that you actually know a lot about U.S. culture. But think of him. He has a lot of these qualities, I think.
Yeah.
Like the hero. He's been an artist because he was a rapper. He kind of has an innocent side to him. I can see him being the sage. I can see him being the lover because he is that way in some movies. The hero, the jester, the everyman. Like he does fit. I'm just thinking of people who are really popular in culture. It's almost like because they fit so many of these archetypes.
It's true, because there are certain actors, right? Like Will Smith would be one that I would say everyone universally likes. I really don't know anyone that's ever had a bad word to say about Will Smith.
Right.
Because, yeah, he covers a lot of those things. So that's interesting. Whereas it would be, I don't know, looking at other actors, maybe that are less popular, maybe it is because they only cater to certain archetypes. So that's, good example.
Yeah, I don't know why I just thought of Will Smith, but
Will Smith, I like it because
Jesus, Chuck Norris, and Will Smith are all on the same.
That's what I was about to say, because of course Will Smith will be listening to this. Like, it's not like he's about to do the reunion of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or anything like that.
I saw that. Yeah,
you know, that's going to be cool. But you know, like
Chuck Norris is probably going to be. Chuck Norris is probably going to be
comparable to Jesus. Wow.
Yeah. But really, in this day and age, they are that powerful if you think about it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
All right, we probably should move on because the only thing is I forgot to set my timer, just so you know. So I don't know.
That's okay. Did you want to really briefly just tell the audience about the test that we did and what our 4 top archetypes are?
Well, yeah, and I think that plays into, so we were talking about the link between archetypes. Okay. So we talked about the link between archetypes and ideologies. And then we're going to talk about how we can use the knowledge of archetypes to find ourselves. And so Adam and I kind of did that this week, preparing for the show. And we took a test. And I think we both ended up with the same test because it looked like it was the same one.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Took a test to find out how we scored of the 12 archetypes, and it was pretty interesting. Do you want me to tell mine first?
Yeah. And I've seen all of these. I don't know if you guys have seen it throughout the show, but yeah.
Probably not. We talked a lot more off air.
True.
But so my top 4, and the top 2 are definitely strongest. So wise old man, which that's why we're joking around, because the female version of that is a crone. And that just doesn't sound good. I think I'd rather just be called a wise old man. So I'm going with that. Wise old man, caregiver, and I should read these maybe. So the wise old man is stoic and contemplative, wise but in no hurry. The caregiver is compassionate and caring, always putting the needs of others before themselves. Great mother was my 3rd one. And that means intuitive and empathetic, always ready to listen. And an innocent child is naive, but a breath of new life and fresh ideas. That's me. And really, well, here's the funny thing. And we can get into yours, or do you want to go through yours quickly before I
had a question actually first.
Yeah.
Do you think that people are more likely to resonate with you and like you and things like that based on their them falling under the same archetypes as you? So no?
Well, here's why I say this, because you'll notice the hero was not in my top 4. I don't even know where the hero is because I only have the next 2. What I printed off only shows the next 2 down. So but obviously hero was way down on my lists. And what I found in one of my articles I read is that, so let's see, the wise old man often takes the form of a mentor or teacher to the hero. So you guys are going to find out here that Adam's first or highest scoring
is the
hero. And and I feel like, I think you agree with me on that I have kind of taken that role with you.
Yeah, you have. So there's been quite a few times off air, and I won't say what the examples are, but they are cases where I have been very stubborn in my way of looking at things, and Amanda has challenged me on those things, and I've learned something from it. So yeah, you have taken on. We will create a new category called the wise old woman, not the wise old man, not the wise old woman.
I'm fine with being wise old man, whatever. But so no, when I saw that, I almost just laughed out loud because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's too funny because that's so true. So I think it almost seems to me, and I'm sure you can make a case for both sides. I almost feel like maybe polar opposites are more compatible.
Yeah, okay.
They're not
That makes
polar
sense.
opposites. I shouldn't say it that way, but the ones that are not, the people that don't score the same way that you would score, or however you want to say it, would probably be more compatible. I said it the wrong way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, well,
Now I'm
even
just
as I
making
asked
it
you
really
that
confusing.
question, I thought my 4 are completely different to your 4.
Right.
So I was like, well, like, yeah, if we only resonated with our own, then we probably wouldn't be doing a show.
Well, and that's a good point, because I think you and I are very compatible in a lot of ways.
Yes.
As far as this relationship goes. I'm not trying to imply anything else.
This has been a funny episode. I think we've been drawing on the jester today a lot.
I don't know what it is. I'm just goofy today. But, anyways, I do think that it has to have something to do with it, though.
Yeah, I think so.
So what are you for?
So my 4, as we said, the one that I'm strongest with is the hero, which is the strong and perseverant with boundless ambition. And I can say that resonates with me a lot. You know, I've always thought that I've had a lot of ambition in anything I do.
Yeah.
I always really want to really go for it and make something of it and myself. The second is the wise old man.
You did
the third
that?
is
Oh,
the
that's
joker.
right. Yeah.
And the third is the innocent child. So I can say I resonate
So we do
with
have
that.
some overlap, though.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the hero would be definitely the dominant archetype for me. I think, certainly the Joker, I do like to be an idiot, as you guys would know. And I am an innocent child because I am very naive sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
But from a wise old man point of view, in the right context with the right people, I can be the wise old man and sit back and help people.
Oh,
but it would be interesting, though, to see, as you said, because I didn't know until you just said before that the wise old man can mentor the hero. Yeah. Maybe it's a case where somebody who's a hero, you know, that's where my archetype comes in and I can counsel them, you know. So it's interesting.
True.
Yeah.
Well, and what I found interesting with mine is, so the wise old man didn't really surprise me. The caregiver, because that was really high. I mean, it was only a couple of points below wise old man, and I was really surprised at caregiver until I thought about it. Because I've often said I'm not a caregiver. Like, I've used that phrase before to tell people but I think I was thinking of caregiver in the wrong way. Yeah. And so that's what's so interesting about understanding these archetypes, because I think it helps you see yourself in a different way. And I just believe the more you can understand about yourself and the more you can understand about other people, the better off you're going to be in this life. So, yes. But the caregiver, there's our tagline for the show. That was a good one. Well done. But the caregiver, so I was thinking of it as a physical care, like more of a physical caregiver. Like I do not like cooking. I don't like cleaning. I don't like these types of things I think of as a caregiver. But then when I really thought about it, I'm like, but I'm a caregiver. That's like my wise old man and caregiver work together, because I'm very much a caregiver in a psychological way. Like I can see I'm very much a caregiver when it comes to being there for people psychologically and helping them sort through their emotions, or helping them when they're having a hard time, or helping them become better. And I'm not just saying this about myself, but my best friend actually told me once that I make the people around me better. And I think that's why, because I am a caregiver, but to me, it's more of like, it's not an obvious caregiver, if that makes any sense.
A little bit.
like the way that I think of caregiver, like I say, is actually taking care of people, like, yeah, helping them when they're sick, or helping. Yeah. That kind of stuff. I have no interest in any of that, really.
If you're sick, she will not bring you chicken soup. Sorry, she won't do it.
Although this is interesting too, because I actually thought about this too. I'm not much of a caregiver if it's like a mild illness. I'm just gonna be like, buck it up, you know. But when my husband had cancer, I was very much a caregiver, and I was all in, and I was like on top of it. So like when I reflect back on that, then I can definitely see the caregiver in me. And so it's just interesting because I never would have picked that one out. If I was going to pick like my top 4, I wouldn't have picked that one.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my plug to encourage people. Maybe I should put a link to this quiz, because I really would encourage people to do it, because I bet you're going to be surprised. Like, I don't think either of us were surprised by our top answer or our top result, but the other ones were surprising.
Yeah, I mean, what I liked about it. Were any of
yours surprising to you or not?
None of the 4 were surprising to me, but I hadn't really sat down and thought about them a lot. Like, it was interesting because I thought, that explains a lot of who I am, I think.
Yeah. But no, it was a fun exercise to go through.
Yeah, it's worth doing. I'd highly recommend everyone does it.
Absolutely.
And so, do you want to move to our final point?
Well, that was our final point.
Was that our final point?
Yeah.
Fulfilling ourselves?
Well, I guess maybe it's leading more to the final point. I don't know. What else that was your point. What else did you want to talk about?
So, with it, because what I was quite curious about was tying into the personal unconscious. So the idea of the mask or the persona.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I was particularly curious about was whether wearing a mask every day can be detrimental to us. Because I think some of us get...
Can you explain what you mean by the mask?
Yeah, so the persona talks about like how we want people in society to view us. And so basically it's paramount to putting a mask on your face every day because it's not really you.
Well, and different masks depending on who you're socializing with, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think we all definitely do that. But then I think I asked this a while back. Is doing that detrimental to you? You know, like, are you getting further and further away from yourself because you're so used to constantly putting a mask on, or you've got a collection of 100 masks? It's almost like out of Game of Thrones when she's in that room and there's hundreds of masks.
I'm the only person in the world who's never seen Game of Thrones.
This is the biggest takeout of the show is Star Wars and Game of Thrones. You need to watch.
Are you still going to be my podcast partner after this?
I'm not sure. We'll see, guys. This could be like,
this could be it. Enjoy.
This could be the Freud and the Jung situation for us.
Oh gosh. That would be funny.
But yeah, that was something I found interesting. So that was one of the questions I had, and it might be just a rhetorical question. So, is it detrimental wearing the mask every day? The second one was around the animus, which I found very interesting, which is this idea of the man being able to embrace the feminine and the woman being able to embrace the masculine. And Jung said that it was very counterproductive and damaging in society because of the way things were kind of built. We couldn't act through our feminine side as a man, say, or through our masculine side as a woman. And I think that's certainly the case. We like things to be very in boxes. If you're a man, you're masculine, and that's the only way it will be. Yeah. And if you're a woman, you're feminine, and that's the only way it will be. But overall, the dominating thing is the masculine, and it comes across in all our ideologies. So both of those things, which are part of the archetypes of the personal unconscious, I found very interesting to say, well, to get to yourself, I think you need to embrace the animus. And I also think you need to just be really mindful of the mask you wear. Because, I spoke last week about the consensus reality, the social contract of society, how we all agree, like, this is how things are, this is how we're going to operate. Yeah. Maybe wearing a mask is how we need to operate. But again, I don't know if that's harmful to you achieving yourself. So that's why you do need time to step out of the persona and reflect on who you are as yourself, because otherwise, you could get too bogged down and it become too unconscious.
For sure. Well, and I think maybe that's just, so my understanding of consciousness is that you're aware of your thoughts and you're aware of mainly your thoughts, but your thoughts lead to feelings and behaviors. So you're aware of all of that. And so I'm just thinking, like with the masks, I think if you're aware of it, because I think you do have to put masks on sometimes. It's just necessary. Whatever. We could debate that. But if you live in a society of any kind where you're going to have to interact with other people, you're going to have to put a mask on sometimes. But I think if you're aware that you're putting a mask on and why you're putting a mask on, then I don't think it would be detrimental, if that makes any sense. But I think a lot of people just put it on without even realizing they're putting it on or realizing why they're doing it. Because they're trying to cover something up. And I guess that's the difference, is you're not trying to necessarily, well, you are trying to cover something up. I guess it would be kind of what your intention is too, because maybe your intention is just to have a better interaction with someone, not to cover up an inadequacy of yourself.
Well, I'd love a world where we could all be ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's going to take a very long time to get there. But I do like the idea of us being conscious to the fact that we're wearing a mask.
Right.
Because if we're conscious to that fact, then we're not going to completely lose ourselves. We're going to realize, I just have to wear this mask today because I'm at work, and this is how I need to operate at work. Because I do think we do sleepwalk through our lives. We just do things. We don't really pause. So we need to pause and go, am I cultivating time for myself? Or am I just literally getting up 9 to 5 with my mask on and then going to bed and then repeating? Because I think that's why so many of us settle, because we're just wearing a mask every day and not even thinking about the self, which is harmful.
Yeah, 100%. Or even more, I think, is that people they'll think about their self later. You know what I mean? Like, and they don't say it that way, but they're like, oh, I'll do that when I retire, or I'll do that after. And it's like, okay, well, what are you waiting for? I mean, okay, there is a point. There are some things you're not going to be able to do right now. And I'm not saying that you should not be fiscally responsible and save for retirement. I'm not saying that. However, I am saying that you can't just put off living today for something that may or may not happen tomorrow. And that's what a lot of people end up doing too. So they wear these masks all the time so they can get through the next 40 years, hoping that when those 40 years are done, they're going to automatically have this great life. And then they get there and they don't have a great life because nothing's changed except for they don't have to go to work. That's the only thing that's changed.
Exactly. Well, I just think how much people hate wearing these masks at the moment.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So ridiculous. Just think, because we always seem to put physical needs above, psychological needs.
Yeah.
There's no difference there. So the people that are walking around going, gosh, I'm so sick of wearing this mask. It's like, okay, well, how about thinking of the mask you're wearing psychologically, where you're hiding yourself,
Yeah, true.
That's equally uncomfortable. You need to take that mask off and actually breathe and have a moment.
This is deep.
Yeah.
that might be the tagline for the show.
Yeah, take off your mask and just live in the self. But honestly, that's something I cannot move away from. Is just so many of us are just living through that persona. And I know it because I've done it. I still do it from time to time.
Of course.
You'd be the same, but it's so harmful. Whereas when you are yourself, I swear, you just life is so much more enjoyable. You're not walking through sleepwalking anymore. You're literally seeing everything with new eyes. So
right. And I guess to tie it back into what we're talking about today with archetypes, but I mean, that is part of, so the reason we're talking about it is because it is part of finding yourself.
Yes.
And figuring out who you are and understanding that archetypes might not be the way that works for you. And that's cool. But there is some way that works for you that you can find. There's so many different ways that you can find yourself. And I think the more that we try to understand, I think I already said it, but the more that we try to understand ourselves, others, the world, whatever, the closer we're going to get to being our true self, whatever way we do that.
Yes, so, I agree.
And that's what we're going to keep talking about here.
Well, that's it. That's
why we are talking about these topics, because we want to encourage people to get to know themselves, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we changed up the show, which we talked about a bit last week. We're changing it because we're gonna challenge ourselves to look outside of our normal kind of way of viewing the world.
Yeah.
And we know that people will resonate differently. Maybe some people will love Carl Jung, maybe some people love consciousness, quantum mechanics, maybe other people will like us talking about, I don't know, 50 Shades of Grey. Don't worry, we're never going to do a show on that.
When did we agree to talk about that? But there's a lot of archetypes in there, though.
But, you know, like maybe that's how someone wakes up. They're like, oh, I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know that much about it. But
sure. Now you're backtracking.
I'm going to close the door. No, but yeah.
Goodness. Oh, I think we probably should wrap things up because
we should.
Goofy.
But everyone's safe, including our own.
But that's fun. But that's real. See, people, we really enjoy what we're doing. This is so. This is proof positive that we actually enjoy doing this. So, so I will wrap things up, and I'll go through the 3 points again that we were going to talk about, just to recap. So our overall theme was don't settle for your current understanding of yourself and others. And the 3 points we covered were the background of how Jung developed the concept of archetypes, the link between archetypes and ideologies, and how we can use knowledge of the archetypes to find ourselves. So those are the things that we talked about in general. And then, of course, we talked about how Jesus, Chuck Norris, and Will Smith are all in the same boat. So that was the most important point of the show. But anyways, as Adam said at the beginning, please, whatever platform you're listening or watching on, hit the like button, leave us a comment, follow us, subscribe, whatever. All that stuff will help us get out there to spread this message to more people so more people can become conscious and learn about themselves. And again, we're on Coffee. There will be a link to that in the description. And so Coffee, you can donate as little as $1 to us to keep this thing going. And I think that's about it. So for now, I would just say cheers to not settling.
Cheers to not settling. Bye.
Take care.